You thought that's all you were gonna get today, huh? Or the other day? I didn't mean today. Hi, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and we're continuing the 75th birthday of John Byrne. We have to deal with the golden age of John Byrne. Yes, there was a golden age, much talked about, much praised, and to his biggest, well, no, actually, it wasn't his biggest, largest success, but it's the most memorable period of John Byrne's work because, besides the fact of him making a name for himself, the 80s came along and the back issues were costly. So the back issues were so costly and they were used in comparison to his current work. So it's kind of like, this is, whoa, what? older stuff, his older stuff is better. All this other stuff, right? But I'm giving you the straight dope on this right now. I'm going to give it to you how it was because I was growing up. Actually, I was growing up. I was a little small, so I can say I had maybe or seen maybe 20 to 30 of Byrne issues. Let me keep you in mind that my first experience in comics was the origins of Marvel Comics and Son of Origin, and some of those little pocket books of Spider-Man, and in the 80s, the Fantastic Four. So it's mainly Spider-Man, getting Marvel Tales. So my favorite artists that I could call out were probably Steve Ditko, John Buscema, that who I would call John Buscema, and then at the same time, I was a big X-Men fan. So I was a big Spider-Man fan, big Batman fan. Was actually Batman, probably Superman originally, then Batman immediately, and then Spider-Man eclipsed both of them, and then the X-Men. So at the time, I was a big Spider-Man, and since obviously my middle name's Peter, I was very hooked into Spider-Man. I liked the cartoon and the Electric Company. I can't say too much more. I'd read the regular comic books, and I was wowed by Spider-Man. And at the same time, I was buying books that John Byrne drew, right? So there was Marvel Tales. Maybe I had one of them, maybe the one with the Hulk and Wood God in the desert. Oh, might as well, since I got this picture up from the 20th, this is the period, the breaking point, right? Where we see Byrne keeping the uniform styles of the FF. The Fantastic Four had gotten slightly wider collars when George Perez, but it was hard to notice, right? But this is what Marvel was getting from Byrne, and this is what they wanted, and this is what the fans liked, and they could see at Marvel. They would say that Terry ink cover would be big, but this is this is 81. I'm taking this period from 76 when Byrne first started to 75 as the golden age of John Byrne. We're not throwing in all the other stuff because that's a different stage. And they're shorter than 10-year stages because the shift in artwork and the shift in style and approach. So that's what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to let this thing play, but I did want to talk about some of this stuff before I actually got into any comic books. Oh no, it's not supposed to be music and get bounced, right? I'm going to let some of this play, but let me stop it here. I said I lied. I'm not doing this, right? We got Iron Fist, right? Let's stay right here, right? Now, what can I say about this? So, if you imagine, I'm going back to where I was a kid, right? I'm a kid. I picked up Spider-Mans. I was picking up Batman a lot. And then, at the same time, I want the X-Men, right? So, when I get the X-Men, I think the first one I can remember, because I remember being shocked that they weren't the originals in the team. So I think it was 116, right? I think I had 116. I had a Champions issue that Byrne did. And when I opened up the X-Men issue, it had Cyclops in it. The Wolverine, I thought looked a little like Batman. So I was like, okay, that's acceptable. I liked the metal guy, and Kazar was an angel, but I just said, okay, he has blonde hair. Let's just go with it. This is my kid thinking, right? And I love the issue. and I think I had 109, 113. I can't tell you when I got those, but I got those, and I think 125, and then 139, 141, and 143. So it's about like 6 issues. And then there was other, as I said, other books that Byrne was doing, which was Champions. I had an issue from that. I had a couple issues from, I think, Marvel Team Up. Let's go through it. Let's let this play down and we'll see what we got in there. I didn't have any Iron Fists, but I'll say to you like this. As big as the X-Men was, Iron Fist was just as big as the back issues in the 80s. People were going crazy for these. I had this one with Captain America. I was planning on reading it, but let's just move forward, right? So this is a big, for the back issues. When it came out, it wasn't selling that well. So obviously they made it into Power Man and Iron Fist, right? But people still reference this, the creation of Sabretooth. Power Man and Iron Fist was kind of a big book, but of course the sales left it. But it saved both of their titles. Archie Goodwin idea, and then they finished their Iron Fist story in was it Marvel? But Spider-Man, Byrne almost got Spider-Man. This was a tryout, and Keith Garpollard got it, but he was doing Marvel team-ups, and I didn't have. I always think I had this, but I might have it in a back issue. This is one I think of Hulk and Wood God. I had this as a back issue. Yep. So Byrne at this time is, just mostly penciling. There will be an issue, one page that he inks, but he's mostly penciling. There's the Super Skrulls, I think, his favorite villain. This is the inks that were closest to what his art looked like. He felt his art looked like, and this is a piece that Byrne inked, right? People give the credit to Dave Hunt, but it was Byrne, and another one that looks close to, supposedly looks close to his pencils, and Terry Austin coming in and inking this one. And Byrne felt strongly enough because he came up with the idea that he asked for the plot for the Red Sonja issue. What was it? Al Milgrom is the editor, so it would have to be a talk with to the editor for Byrne to get co-plotter credit. But it also started the connection between Claremont and Byrne, right? And I had this issue, but I think it was a back issue. This, you could see a lot of the Neil Adams in his artwork. It'd be stuff you see from Byrne, but this one feels like, it's not photorealistic, but kind of Neil Adams type realism. So, what else? What else we got here? Oh yeah, the Champions. So at the same time, reading the original X-Men, when I got the Champions, I didn't have this issue. I had issue 13. Oh, the next picture will have that, right? So, no, that's not the Champions. I bought this one later. Here we go. So this one is the issue I had, and this is probably the best issue Bob Layton inked. It looks a lot like Dan Green's inks, and yeah, this was a big issue. Not just for me. People wrote in like this issue. That's how big this issue was. So it's definitely a great period. The hard part of this period is that Byrne, at the same time, from his peers, they were able to see the flaws, right? But as the people at Marvel, they were like, well, maybe we just push him more towards Neil Adams. So when he had inkers, like I think, who was it? Jim Shooter would allow some of them to do whatever they wanted with the faces because they felt Byrne's faces all looked the same. There's some more Terry stuff, and like Joe Simmet, when he worked with Perez and Byrne, he's heavily into redoing the artwork. These were his books. He was embellisher on it, so he's very heavy-handed. But at the same time, Byrne, all these guys love being inked by Joe Simmet, right? And this one's you can barely tell, but he got credit on the cover. And this one too, what else can I say? I don't think I had any of these Fantastic Four issues. I had some issues before 200, and I'm not sure why none of it caught my eye. But I was a big fan of the cartoon, so anything where Reed was really strong and powerful, I would be into. If he wasn't, I was out. So the Fantastic Four this period didn't really hook me. I did have not this Avenger issue, but I had the one with Bova. I think I had this issue, which is 185, and I was like, I didn't really, I would, kind of glance at the words. So it was like the one who brought you this world. I was like, oh my God, their mother's a cow. This is crazy. And but Scarlet Witch and Vision, since they were in the X-Men, and Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and the X-Men, they were some of my favorites. I think I had this one too. I think I had 2 issues. I bought this as a back issue, so I kind of remember it as one I had. Cap, I had, I think, 3. I think I had this one and 2 others. This one, I had this one too. So this is what I was buying for the art. So if I just told you that I was, I like Ditko and Buscema, this is where I didn't know what his name was or how to pronounce it. But when I was reading Captain America, I was a fan of Byrne's art here. Because even though I was buying it and liking it without knowing it is, the Captain America was the first time where I was like, what happened afterwards? Not even on the X-Men. The X-Men, I was okay with what was going on. I didn't like the way the stories were going. Except Brent Anderson did the next issue after Byrne. I was okay with it. Dave Cockrum went on it. I just didn't look at the issues with Bill Sienkiewicz. I didn't like the Sleazoid stuff, and I didn't like Bill Sienkiewicz stuff during that time. So for the X-Men at least, I like Moon Knight. But when he wasn't on the next issue, I kept going back looking at Captain America, hoping that he would come back. And I wasn't in the press, so I didn't know what happened, and then I wouldn't find out till later. So, let's see, Byrne, like Perez, like Neil Adams, like the original Ant-Man. So however they could get to do the original Ant-Man, they would. Star-Lord I would have in the 80s. This was a big comic for a lot of fans, but it was a reprint. So since it was a reprint, it kind of lost its luster. But it was a big issue when it first came out, but then people started saying, oh, that's a reprint though. That's not worth anything. So yeah, but Star-Lord was a big thing in the 80s. And here's the X-Men, right? So this is a classic team. This is Byrne's, even though it was issued before that, this is the first one we had the team looking towards him. So we got to do a full shot showing the entire team, right? What else do I want to say? So I had this issue, but I don't know when I got it. But when I got this issue, I redrew Vindicator a million times. Me and my brother, I think he almost cut up the comic book trying to do stories on it. So for me, even though I do talk about a lot of the other periods for Byrne, this was a big period as as a young fan. So I wasn't looking at the merits of the art or that this art was better than anything. This was just a great period. So the 80s is kind of when you try to quantify Byrne being better or the old stuff being better. But ultimately, this was just like a good period. And when the X-Men kind of started going left in the 80s, I would buy these. So it was kind of like going back and I get this issue and I'd be wowed. I'd be wowed at the storytelling and the characterization and wonder why that wasn't being done in the present, why Magneto was a good guy, why they were doing stories to counter what had actually happened, why are people not calling Magneto on his issues. So I go back and I buy this issue, and I would be like, wow, that's amazing, and look how hot Storm is. It was just like good Lord. So much was happening to me every time I'd pick one of these back issues out, and this one I had, as I said, and it was an amazing issue. And that was my first meeting of the X-Men. I was like, well, at least Cyclops is there. And as long as Cyclops is there, I'm okay. And they had Storm. Storm was another big deal because she was, extremely hot. And the Alpha Flight, I didn't meet them. I think I'd seen this issue on the stands, but I didn't. I guess my parents didn't buy it for me. The arcade issue, I did. I had the arcade, so maybe it was 7, right? Didn't have the Proteus thing, but I read that in the back issues, and that was a great one. Kitty Pryde, I liked a whole lot when I first met her, and I fell out of love with her in the 80s. Because Kitty Pryde was us. Kitty Pryde was actually if the X-Men came to your door and said, you're a mutant. And that was like, man, that would be great. And I would go upstairs to Storm in her Avery and, possibly run into her nude. So it was just like, this is like, real life would be so great if Professor Xavier came and let me know I was a mutant. But that never happened, right? So let's keep going. Yep, I bought this. This is one of the first back issues I had my mother bought that I remember. So I bought X-Men 132. It had Angel in it. It has Scott and Jean. I guess you could say possibly their first time together. They go into the Hellfire Club. A mastermind shows up. I was just like, what the hell is going on? Jean turns on them. Because at that point I knew Phoenix, Jean and Phoenix had died, but I had no idea what happened. So buying this issue, seeing Jean turn into the Black Queen, was just like, wow. And then having this last shot of Wolverine was just like good Lord. I gotta see Wolverine Alone. And Wolverine Alone was actually a Hard Rock had that. I said this 3 million times. The tough guys were called Hard Rocks. He had this issue. He was reading in the school park, and I was like, this is like gold. I know he's not gonna let me borrow or read this, but I bought it years later, and I was very, I was definitely impressed. It was like, and that shot was stole by Vin Diesel in Triple X, right? And this is the second back issue I had that I remember, and the rest of the back issues I can't. But I think a friend of mine said I was trying to collect all the X-Men, have a straight run of the X-Men. I was close to getting it before I think I got robbed, and so I have a good. I don't know. It's hard to say. Right, I had this issue. I definitely had this issue. And this one, Angel's back. So I was pretty happy about that. Wolverine has a nice, cool costume. Wendigo, Hulk is drawn. Is Byrne, you got to draw the Hulk in there. So it was a lot of good things. I bought this a little while after, and I was impressed with that too. Days of Future Past, I bought that off the stands. Definitely bought that off the stands, and I was wowed by it. This one, this is the fun. This is the fun part of it, right? Because I got these out of order, right? You look at this story. This is the closest. I also know they were in the rush, but the X-Men are in Congress in this story, right? And you get a hint that there's this paper thin wall. There's like a street here, so it's an open area. But when I was reading this as a kid, I thought they were outside. It's really hard to do this because they're fighting in Congress, but at the same time, middle of the book, Storm pushes them outside, right? And they're on a high angle. So, but here, it's hard to tell. It's a great shot. With the background, it's hard to tell where they're at. It looks like they're in an art gallery, right? But this possibly considered one of the best pages ever. But at the same time, there's a couple shots I could point out that don't look like the location it's going to be in, right? You really need some more background to this. But they would say this for the other period. So it's tough. This is one of the best images. I would have it on my wall, plastered all over. But at the same time, I look back at it and say, they're fighting in Congress, though, and it don't look like Congress. It looks like an art gallery. But anyway, let's keep going. What else is in here? On the Blob, the Danger Room. Now, I didn't know that Claremont and Byrne did not like the Danger Room. They were totally against it. They felt it was wrong for him to have, especially when he was utilizing it with kids. He said training room is one thing, but something where the ultimate loss is that you die is not cool. So Byrne and Claremont kind of played this up, but they both wanted Xavier to be thrown in there and barely get out with his life and shut it down. But I was always a fan of the Danger Room. Byrne finally did some cool Danger Room shots in 139, 141, and 143. I was like, Byrne loves it. And I didn't know he actually disliked it, right? So, and we got the 143, we got this great shot of Storm, and the quintessential shot of the series. Oh no, this one is a rejected. When I saw that, as much as I liked the original 142, I was like, no, they should have printed this. Like, this is like, and it would have been memorable that people would see the Sentinels as being monstrous and nobody could do anything with them. Like, showing them as vicious as they can be. So this is one of the things that was lost outside of showing that they could incinerate Wolverine with no problem. So I was gonna go, I think the last time I went through an issue, but I think this was a lot of fun going this way. So this is, I guess to most fans, the best period, and it very much was for me when I was in my teens. I'm not saying anything bad about it. I did do one critique on that one issue, but at the same time, definitely this was one of the better periods and one of the benchmarks as Byrne's career was going on, and I'd see him kind of move to a style I liked. I would be like, now it's time to do the X-Men. So when he's doing Fantastic Four around 160 or something like that, or 158, I was like, he should do the X-Men now. Or see the first Alpha Flight, he should go back to the X-Men now. And then the Hulk, he should go back to the X-Men definitely now. And then I think when he went to Big Barda, I was like, yes, he should go back to the X-Men now. So for me, I kind of accepted that at some point. I think when the Hulk happened, I was saying, okay, he could change for the better. And then by the time the Next Men happened, it wasn't through Next Men issue 6 where I kind of had to turn over as a Byrne fan that I'm just in it for the long haul. Like, it's not to say that I'll buy it for no other reason, but I was going to accept how he was going, and either Byrne was going to prove me right with the stuff he did, or I'm going to trust him that it's going to work out. So I'm not saying everything worked out, but at the same time, I've been in it such a long haul since I first started buying comic books, and the Next Men was kind of like a jump into the deep end with the series that I knew nothing about, didn't know the characters, and at times I would say to myself, will I accept Namor? I like Namor, but he's so different. He's not a character that I connected with. Like I connected him because he was cool, but I didn't connect him like Spider-Man or Batman or the X-Men. I connected him because he was cool, but a story about him, will I? And I did. He did get me to connect with him. So it proved that I should trust the Next Men as they were going along. And I think, when did I really catch for the Next Men? 1, 2, 3. I think it was 6. The crazy part is 6 kind of made sense, and then it was a roll. It's still a roller coaster ride. So, but this deserves all the accolades that it can get, but it wasn't the highest price selling comic. It wasn't flying off the stands. You know, the X-Men, Marvel Team Up, Iron Fist, Champions were all second tier titles. Cap wasn't the first tier. No, it one was third tier titles. Cap might have been the second tier because it struggled during Kirby, but Byrne and Stern on it, it was a big deal. So it was really sad to see it go. So yeah, it is one of that. I don't have a Batman. Do I have a Batman shot in here? I might have added it. Did I add a Batman shot? He did do one issue of Batman. So that was heavily redrawn by Jim Aparo, but we have him doing one thing for DC during this period. So this is classic Byrne. I'll call it the Golden Age. I separated from his Fantastic Four work because he was doing, he was inking it himself, and it's a different approach to the next period. So we'll get into the FF period and the stuff that went along with it up until, damn it, I think that's a longer period, which I'm calling a Silver Age. Is going to be the Fantastic Four to about, I think, Namor, the first 3 issues of Namor. I think that's what I called it. That's going to be the Silver Age. So this was the Golden Age. This is what most people feel is his best stuff. I would say it's a long way from the Charlton stuff, but I think Byrne has a lot to show, and especially when he started inking his own stuff. I think something Jerry Ordway says is getting to see some textures that Byrne was bringing to the work that other artists would bring their textures, but we wouldn't get the textures that Byrne. Like looking at Frank Miller and Klaus Jansen's work, the textures that they brought to the table, and then the textures that Frank Miller brought without Klaus Jansen. That's the thing we need to see. We definitely need to see. You might like Terry's style better, but at the same time, it's interesting to see there was stuff that I don't think Terry could do better. There was stuff that Terry did better as an inker, and then there was stuff when you see the inks, you're like, well, why couldn't? That's as a kid. I'll just say this to say the benchmark for me, and I was still a kid in '81 buying Fantastic Four on 238, and I was wondering why. This has the X-Men team. It has the X-Men team together in the first part, and Byrne inking himself in the second part, in a Sue pinup inked by Byrne. And I was like, well, why is the Byrne period better than the Byrne and Austin part of this book? I don't understand it. It's just inking. Why should it be any different? So, it was still a good issue. So, Spinner Rack out. Check out this period and tell me what you think, because I talk about Byrne a lot. So let me know what you think about it. This is my first unabashed celebration of this period. I've talked about the X-Men. I've talked about Champions. I think I did Iron Fist, but this is me gushing as best as I can, keep my energy up for this period like it deserves. And there was, Art of John Byrne was in this period. Art of John Byrne was in this period, so it was a part of this. And but you see, if you look at that and look where Byrne went after that, it's a lot different. So, Spin Rack out.